Welcome to the Top 10 Gardener with Master Gardener Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and top 10 advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your garden host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. We are, autumn I think is next week. Is that right? Or gosh, is it already there? We're right here. It feels like there's a crispness in the air. And so I was watching the eclipse earlier, and it was just nippy outside. It was kind of just feels like autumn. Now, the mountains of Arizona won't stay this way. It's going to go back to summer. We're famous. Renowned for our Indian summers. And so it gets cool and then it goes right back to warm. So it'll be 70 this week and 88 next week. So this is we'll do this throughout till the end of the year, which is kind of beautiful. That's why we live in such a mild 4-season climate. Your plants are going crazy right now. And so my hydrangeas are just glorious. Oh my goodness. The heat, they kind of struggle. They went, I'll bloom a little bit for you, but not too much. I'm not going to put that much energy into it. But now I think it's put on 20 blossoms. Just right now, these are perennial hydrangeas. There are some that bloom exceptionally well here in the mountains of Arizona, and they just need some shaded areas. That's the secret with hydrangeas. Other parts of the country, full sun. Here, they struggle with that dry, bright sun. Is just too much. Put them in a little bit of shade. So mine's on the northeast side. It loves growing there and blooms like crazy. A beautiful, just blue hydrangea. I just had some hydrangeas come in, some beautiful fall hydrangeas, white pinnacles coming up. These beautiful white flowers that will just bloom for the next 2 months. They're glorious. Nothing's like a hydrangea out in the garden. I guess roses, but roses look best in the summer and the spring. So it just there's a season for everything. My vines are going nuts. I cannot keep them in check. Akebias, honeysuckles. As long as they're tidy and they keep in check, that's fine. But when they start to take over and grow into other plants, going, okay, guy, come on. You got to know, you got to have some boundaries, man, some boundaries. And so I've been cutting back on things, and it is perfectly fine. It is encouraged to cut back on plants. Don't let them, they like a haircut. They feel better about themselves. They feel more beautiful, more shapely when you give them a good haircut. And so plants are kind of like people. They just feel better when you kind of keep them, tidy, clean, neat haircut. And so I've been cutting those vines back. I've been replacing quite a few things. So some of my geraniums, they just were, they bloomed and now they're out of bloom. I'm coming to the end of the season. Geraniums are a true annual. That is, it loves growing when it's tropical, when it's sunny, when it's warm out, but when it's cool, they're not going to make it. And so by the end of October, they're out of here. So I'm trying to pull some of these things out. Some of my Martha Washingtons are gone. Some of the beautiful sunflowers, had some unbelievable sunflowers. They're glorious. They were in full bloom, but they just gotten so big and so leggy. By the time I cleaned and shaped them up, I went, you know what? I live in America, the greatest country that's ever existed. You're out of here. I'm going to put some nice pansies and violas, ornamental kales. There's a whole series of plants that if I can get those in now and they get rooted and filled, and they will give me continual color, many of them right through the entire winter season. They'll be glorious until next June. And so it's all about getting them in the ground or in the container I've got lots of pots. And so I'm in the ground or in pots or in raised beds, get them in so they get rooted and plumped and full. So I've got it easily 6 weeks of just solid, just fast growing, fast rooting season left, plenty of time left, but it's strategy to get some of the things I know are going to fade, put the things that I know will look great. As if I can just get them in and full and rooted, they'll be glorious and give me more enjoyment for more months through winter. It's unique. That's a unique area. This part of this lower part of the Rocky Mountains, is high elevation of Arizona. It's mild, but it's still 4 seasons. So you've got the shoulders are much longer of the growing season here as compared to, let's say, a Denver or a Midwest, Chicago, where it's just when it's over, that's it. Now the ground is freezing. Well, that doesn't do that here. We don't have freezing ground. It's just beautiful all the time. One thing I am adjusting. So my irrigation, I did cut back this week. And what I did is I was watering my container gardens every day in the morning. Well, I went back, they seem to be pretty happy. I'm going to cut them back to every other day. And so I went to every other day for my container plants. The trees and shrubs were at once every week. Well, you know what? I think I could go once every 8 days. I didn't play with the time, how long they are running. They're running the same amount of time they are. I mean, year round. I never adjust how long the irrigation goes for. Once you find how long irrigation needs to run to get that water penetrating through the entire root zone, you don't play with that. The only adjustment I'm playing with is how frequently. How many days can I go in between each water cycle? So I've got 8 different cycles. I've got 4 in the front yard, 4 in the backyard. So the containers are on their own irrigation valve. The thyme lawn is on its own irrigation valve. The trees in the front yard are on their own irrigation valve. And the same for the back. And so I'm trying to break up, trees and shrubs are big, deep rooted plants. Once you water them really well, they can go for days and days and days before they need additional water, no matter how hot it gets. Flowers, they're typically shorter. A tree can have a 3-foot depth root structure. Well, for 3 foot of soil to dry out, it takes a long time. For flowers, it's typically about a foot. So you get some echinaceas or gaillardias or whatever it happens to be, some salvias. They're going to be probably a foot to 18 inches worth of roots. Well, it takes a long time for a foot of soil to dry out completely. And so there I was watering those about every 5 days. Now I'm at every 6. I just added a day in between the cycles, and I'll monitor. And I'll see if I can cheat it and go a little bit farther. It's cool this week. But I just know it's going to warm back up. So I'm kind of playing it conservatively. I'm going to adjust it back a little bit and then monitor. And if I need to, I can manually run it if I needed to. And so play with that. Now, some of you are going, oh, well, Ken just gave me permission to cut off all my irrigation. It's cool now. No, plants are actively growing and rooting through October. So you've got at least a month to a month and a half of growing, active rooting system. Plants are actively rooting right now. So yes, the fall is coming or autumn is coming. Plants are going to start showing some colors, not quite there yet, but in the next couple of weeks, you'll start to see certain, the sumacs will start turning color. It'll be that leading edge. That's your cue. You can start to cut back, but it's really that hard frost. The hard frost or freezes. That's what you want to watch. And that happens usually the end of October, first part of November, especially for you folks that have a battery operated timer coming off the hose bib off the house. That will freeze if you're not careful. So protect that because it's a $100 valve, $100 clock. You don't want to lose that. For those of us that have our valves in the ground, we are much more insulated. I mean, it will be January, February before the ground freezes to potentially damage those valves in the ground. So if that even happens, that's only if you hire folks, the Groom Creeks, maybe the Ash Forks and Williams, Flagstaff, you folks, a higher elevation. Yeah, you might freeze some ground, but those of us in this 5,000 foot level, Prescott Valley, Prescott, surprisingly, Camp Verde and Cottonwood, you can get pretty cold. That cold air spills down and settles on you. So we aren't going to see frozen ground. It's just so we can protect those. For me, I get one of those large Ziploc baggies. I put some household insulation in it. I just stuff it in there and I just set it on top of my valves in the ground. And then I put my lid on top of that. And I've never had a valve freeze on me ever. So I kind of keep them on year round. but don't turn that system off too soon. That's a big mistake. Keep watering, but cut it back a little bit. I think you'll have a healthier plant. Got a lot in store for you. Lisa Lain coming in with your garden questions right after this.
Whether you're freshening up an existing landscape or starting with a blank slate, the Waters In-Store Garden Consultation is right for anyone.
If you don't know where to start, Waters' personal shopper service allows you to book one-on-one time with an expert without the crowds.
It's easy by phone or through our website. No lines, no waiting.
Purchase a $250 gift card from Waters, and it comes with one-on-one private gardener time.
You're going to love your yard again.
Waters Garden Center in Prescott or watersgardencenter.com.
You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join his daily podcast for timely garden advice seasonally right for the gardens. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott or through his website at top10gardener.com. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain and the Top 10 Gardener Podcast. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show.
And we are back with Lisa Lain in the studio. She comes each week with your garden questions. Just what are your neighbors talking about? So she comes in and we'll just dive right in. But before we do that, we should share our earthquake story.
Our earthquake story.
Earthquakes. We survived an earthquake at 5:01 in the morning down in Cabo San Lucas. That was 2 weeks ago. We were down there kind of in the middle of the night. Boom. Actually, the building starts shaking, and then you just hear this gigantic pop, pop, boom, like a truck slamming into a building or something. So
you heard it. You were awake. You felt it. I didn't. I thought you were lying, but you were. I was like, "Yo, you're just dreaming it." And then we were hanging around with other people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the earthquake." I was like, "Oh, darn it."
Yep,
he was right.
Right again. That's our third. Let's see. I've been through the big one in California back in the 90s.
90s, yeah.
We've been through a hurricane. What else have we been through? When we travel, we we were in the earthquake in Napa Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Was that 4 or 5 years ago? So it split Napa like in two. We were in a bed and breakfast on the second floor, and it just started violently shaking.
Yes.
And you kind of go, there's nothing you can do because the floor is moving. You can't get to the bathroom where it's safe or whatever, so you just kind of go, this building's been here since 1950 whatever.
We were in an old Victorian, the top floor of an old Victorian home, B&B, and it was shaking like something. I'm like, Ken, it's an earthquake. Or I said it's shaking. He goes, yeah, I know it's an earthquake. Like, do we get out of the building?
It's like, put another quarter in, let it shake some more. It kind of feels pretty good if you're not trying to stand.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a few environmental, natural disasters.
Why is that? It seems like we catch them. Is it because there's always earthquake and hurricanes in the summer, and that's when we're traveling? Or why is that?
Don't know.
Disproportionate number of things. I don't know. Don't overthink it. Just enjoy the journey.
It wasn't bad. The one in Cabo was pretty mild. Yeah. I mean, we've had here in Prescott, we've had some very mild earthquakes.
Yeah. Okay, enough about earthquakes and travel and natural disasters and war and rumors of war. How about we should just all garden more?
I agree.
What do you got for us?
Well, our first question is from Terry. She says, I'm pulling out some non-producing summer crops, tomatoes, etc., and want to put in fall veggies. She says, should I freshen the soil, putting in more mulch, manure, nutrients? What should I do to the soil?
Yeah, Terry, that's actually a good question. So especially where you're pulling out things that have been aggressively growing, corn, beans, peas, your tomatoes, tomatillos, big squash, pumpkins. These are big plants, and they use up the soil because they need to create such strong growth and lots of fruit. So I encourage you, yes, it is time to make the transition. You can clear out the things that aren't producing. What should you do?
Mm-hmm.
If it's in a raised bed, the easiest thing would be put a bag of potting soil in there. That's what the plants are grown in. You're probably starting things not by seed right now. I guess you could, but you're trying to get a jump start on things. So we've got little starts here at the garden center. Well, the starts are started in potting soil. Just put a dig that old stuff up, get rid of the old roots as best you can, free up some room for some fresh potting soil. And then at the same time, I would add some food. Just put some nutrients in there. And a little insider tip. We've been doing quite a bit of planting at our place. And we've got a new product here called woolets. Woolets are like wool pellets. They're wool like sweater wool, like sheep wool. They pelletize them. And they've got a 9% nitrogen fix. They've got some potash. They expand to hold moisture. They had aerate to the soil. The science behind these are amazing. Just get a bag of that, and that'll really jumpstart your broccoli and cauliflower and spinach and lettuce and all that other stuff you're planning on planting. I even added it to some of my my pansies and viola to wonderful effect. It's amazing how quickly things are filling in. So this is some potting soil, some actual food, and some woolet pellets. We've got all that here at the garden center, and you are ready to plant almost like immediately.
So what's your thought on it? Not raised beds, but like in soil? Would you use manure this time of year? Or do you think it's too hot? Better to go with other.
I recommend putting manure down, but not planting directly in it right away. It's just too hot. Generally, I say if you're going to leave the bed open, let's say you're pulling some flower beds or you're going to pull out a big space and you're just kind of shrinking the garden down. Yes, very much. Add a 2 to 3 inch layer of manure in that space, but then let it set. Because Terry wanted to pull out tomatoes and put new things in. Kind of went, better safe than sorry. Potting soil is definitely a better way to go, where you can just, like in the same day, get your broccoli, get some cauliflower, pull the plants out, add some potting soil, woolets, and some food, boom, pot them right in, water it in, and watch them grow just like that. You'll be harvesting through the end of the year. Kale through the entire winter. Kale's a weed.
Definitely. All right. Next question is from Chris. Says he picked all the fruit from his peaches and nectarines. He wants to know if he can prune them back now, or is it best to wait until February?
Yeah, Chris, probably better to wait. Now, with that being said, you can prune 10% of the foliage mass whenever you want. So if it needs a haircut or it's trying to poke you in the eye or something, prune it, get it out of the way. But that major pruning is done in midwinter. And the reason this is, Chris, there's bugs out right now. There's disease. There's things floating around. If you make a cut, the sap of those, especially pitted fruits, it's really sweet and very attractive to pack rats and beetles and aphids and everything else. But in midwinter, the sap's not flowing. You don't have to do any special care for the wound after you made that cut. It's just safer to do that major. I really got to cut this thing back. Usually January, February, March. It's a big window. Enjoy the holidays. Then go after, because I love your ambition, but kind of hold back and it might be a little too soon.
Yeah. Okay, our next question, but before I ask it, I have to know, where have you been? You have spider webs on your hat. That are
oh my gosh.
So distracting.
I don't know where I've been. I've been helping Eric hang lights up for the grapes for good parties. We're getting ready for this big fundraiser on the 29th. And so we've been in boxes and pulling things out, hanging up, because it's an after hour party and it gets a little dark. So we're trying to go, how do we make this safer for 400 guests here at the garden center?
All I kept seeing is this spider web on your hat. Okay, so minor distraction there. We'll move on. Our next question is from Tom. He has a small pinyon pine about 2 foot tall growing next to an established spruce tree. He knows he needs to move it. He wants to move it to a better spot in the yard. He wants to know when the best time to move it is. And then also, once it's moved, should it be put on irrigation?
Yeah, Tom, those are actually really good questions. Can we answer this in 2 minutes or less? You're getting it smaller. That's great. Good idea. The best time is when it's dormant and completely cold. So you want it to be chilled. And so January, February, probably your best time. If you did it now, the risk is much greater, like 3 to 5 times, 10 times greater. I don't know it's more dangerous. In midwinter, because it's in stasis, the sap is not really flowing. You can make more mistakes and have more success. So dig that hole where you want it to go first. then you get as much of the root. It seems like a little 2-footer would be fine, but get as much of the soil as you can physically lift, because those tap roots go, you never know where. Then move it over to keep it exposed as short a time as you can, not because it's cold in January, but because the air is dry. So you want to move it, put it over there, plant it. We've got a planting guide that would help you, Tom. Come get that. You'll need 3 things when you transplant it: some mulch. So you're trying to control the drainage, basically. These are such dry, drought hardy plants. Mulch helps it to aerate, kind of stuff. You want some transplant shock. Oh my gosh, root and grow. It is going to root. It is still rooting in midwinter. The ground is not frozen. It'll help it transplant for you. Do that at least every 2-3 weeks through winter until you see the new growth coming up. And then put a little bit of food around it, some all-purpose plant food that will encourage it to stay green and kind of take. Should you put it on irrigation? I would lean towards no or yes. I don't know. That first, to put it on there to get it established would be great value. But then at the end of next growing season, probably take it off and do it by water by hand kind of thing. It's how I'd recommend that. But Tom, come in for the planting guide. It's got all of that with instructions and pictures. It'll really help you. But wait until January. That's it for this segment. Be right back with the Mountain Gardeners, Ken and Lisa Lain, right after this. If new neighbors are encroaching on your privacy, we have just the solution.
At Waters, we have an entire section of thick, bold plants dedicated to privacy.
Fall is a time to plant a new privacy hedge, and we're here as advisors.
Take a quick measurement and snap a picture before you come visit, and you'll quickly be living in privacy once again.
Plus, our team of experts know how to plant to increase plant growth next spring. We'll show you how.
Waters Garden Center. We know privacy in your backyard.
You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So I love the autumn or fall planting season because it's more decorating than anything else. I mean, it's in the spring, it's just everything is so bare. You're just trying to get the soil ready. Everything is so big and laborious. It's just clean up, pruning. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of work. It's beautiful. It's rewarding. It's healthy. It's therapeutic. I mean, there's a lot of good things, but the fall season has an element of that. But basically, the gardens still look really good. They're really full. They're still fertile. There's still lots of things growing. But I'm trying to make pockets of color. I've picked the pumpkins out of my patch, and now I've got them by the front door, and I'm decorating with those. And so it's much easier. I just cleared out all of that pumpkin vines. Are so easy to clear. Just one huge 20-foot vine. Take it out of there, and the whole garden's cleaned. It's super easy. And now I can accessorize with some mums or pansies or kale or violas, or I can put some broccoli, cauliflower. There's a whole series of plants you can put in to kind of fill in those little pockets, but it's not the same amount of work that you had in the spring. And so I'm doing a lot of that. I've cleared out, what did I clear out this week? Tomatillos are gone. A couple tomatoes are, they're just kind of, I don't need any more. You're done. And you're taking over the entire garden. You're getting too big. Zucchinis, tomatillos, a few things. Peppers are still growing like crazy. So those things that are still producing, you're allowed to stay. Otherwise, I am quick. I mean, just quick to pull you right out of there. So I had some sunflowers. They were glorious. Not big, not that great big. This is unbelievable. An ornamental sunflower. It's beautiful. It probably had 30 blossoms on it. But, I just got tired of deadheading. I was deadheading the flowers to get it to bloom one last time. And I went, you know what? That's it. You're just I don't need a 4-foot wide plant in this container. It's taking over the whole patio. You're out of here. Put a little bit of fresh potting soil. And I put some beautiful blue kind of light sky blue pansies, mammoth pansies in there. They're filling out. They're just as happy as can be. They're going to fill out that entire container and be in full bloom for the rest of the year and into next year. Easily it will bloom till through next April or so, May. And so I'm just trying to be positioned like that around my ornamental or topiaried. I've got quite a few topiaried structured like junipers, pine trees. They're beautiful. They're pieces of art. I've trimmed those back so I can keep the shape. So I've got this spiral, a couple spirals on either side of the back patio. Looks on either side of the sofa. I mean, it looks beautiful outside. It looks like a living room. I don't want those topiaries to get out of shape. And so they're growing so fast, I just shaped them back up. I had some bacopas and some wave petunias at the base of them. I went, okay, you're kind of okay. There's a couple gaps. Do you know what? All you guys are out of here. Put a little bit of fresh potting soil in there, and I put some violas. So some beautiful, smaller pansy-looking things, or Johnny jump-ups is what your grandparents called them. So I'm actively trying to change out a few spots in my gardens to make room for these fall and winter plants. And so you can have beautiful, striking, stunning, glorious gardens year round. We don't have a break here. You can plant. I just got these beautiful hydrangeas, the best looking maple trees of the year just came in. So you can still plant those and they will actively root. And they'll give you this beautiful pop of color through really well into November. And so we don't really truly hard freeze until sometime in November. We don't get our first even inkling of some snow until December, really January. So it's kind of plenty of season. It's just so mild. It's so nice. But I like the autumn because it's more about decorating, kind of reassessing, cleaning things up. If you need to prune or shape things, go right ahead. What the book says is you can prune up to 10% of the foliage mass anytime you want. Dead of summer, fall, spring, whenever. The heavy pruning is done late winter, early spring. That's here in the mountains of Arizona. That's typically February, March. You're going to see in your garden stream going through your phone, through your Facebook, through your social media outlets, you're going to see people on TikTok telling you, oh, prune back your roses, prune them back now, fall plant, fall. Don't do that here in the mountains of Arizona. Don't listen to everything that comes across your feed. Some of it is totally wrong for here. It's right for Phoenix. It's correct for Tucson, Palm Springs, Southern California. It's not right for here. Here we wait to prune back our roses until March. And so don't be tempted to do too much. I want to kick my phone or throw it sometimes. Going, what are they telling? People are going to be doing this. This is crazy. So, but you're tuned into here, the Mountain Gardener. You're watching the podcast or whatever, however you're taking in this content. It's for us. It's what I'm doing in my own yard. And I'd like my friends to have the same success I do. And so I share that information through my garden columns and my radio shows. Well, that's it for this segment. Well, let's wrap this thing up. We'll have Lisa Waters coming in with her garden advice after this. Waters' garden companion plants for September are pampas grass, honeysuckle, raywood ash, and lacy blue Russian sage.
Lacy blue Russian sage is a Waters preferred perennial for its compact form that doesn't flop over in the landscape like others.
The spiky blue flowers bloom summer through fall with aromatic foliage detestable to all animals.
Simply stunning at the edge of dry stream beds mixed with wildflowers.
Shop in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com.
The Top 10 Gardener, your source for timely garden advice seasonally correct for the garden. Guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back in the studio with Lisa Lain. She comes each week, and this whole segment is nothing but her straight 10 minutes, just nonstop, without my interruptions ever once.
Mm-hmm. I think people know better.
If they've been tuned in at all, I like a microphone and I like to hear my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. Actually, I do. It's a sickness. My mother gave me a Mr. Microphone as a kid, and I've always kind of liked it ever since. So.
Well, they say the first thing you need to do before changing something is admit that you need to change.
Yeah, there we go. I can change if I have to.
That was a
I
great
guess.
show. That was what, the Red Green Show?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone remembers that. That
Gotta
was a
love
good
the
show.
Canadian comedy shows.
I wonder if it's still out there. I'll have to look for that.
Everything's on the internet. What are you talking about?
That
It's
is
just
true.
which service. You got to subscribe to 20 services.
No,
So
thank
it's
you.
cable TV was cheaper back in the day than now. If you need HBO and
It
Disney
seems
and
like it.
Netflix and
Yeah.
Amazon and oh my gosh,
It's-
Peacock. And
We
Yeah.
thought we were getting away from that, but we were.
we cut the cable 20 years ago.
Oh, at
So when the
least,
kids
yeah.
were growing up, we just said satellite. The commercials are terrible. We're going to control the content through streaming.
Uh-huh.
It has gotten way easier and way more choices. You can get the sports and the news now. But boy, to get it, it costs. It used to be free for 15 years.
Yeah.
Last 5 years, it's like crazy expensive.
Like
Anyway.
everything else. Anything
No-
else, Grandpa?
No
You-
more. I remember when a candy bar used to be 5 cents, a quarter. I remember streaming used to be free. That's terrible.
Oh, well, it's fun. To, yeah.
Mock
Anywho,
ourselves.
yes.
Yeah.
We'll move on to gardening
There
and
we go.
planting
Can't go wrong with
things
that.
because, yes, you can't go wrong with that. So I'm going to hit on ornamental grasses, using grasses in your landscape. And you're probably going, Lisa, we've heard this before, but we have so many in right now, and they
Stunning.
look beautiful. So if
amazing.
you actually want to see what they're going to look like, now is the time to be shopping for them and planting them.
They're fully mature too. So that,
Right.
you know, it's not just the pampas grass. Pampas grass is not fully mature. They look innocent in the store, in the garden center, and then they grow up into these 6 foot, 8 foot beasts.
Right.
So, but most of the other ornamental grasses,
Mhm.
what you see, that's their mature size
Right.
for most of them. So they're hip high and below, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So they're stunning grasses.
Right. And it's just a perfect time to see them. And the reason I like to push grasses is because they are easy to grow.
Yeah, they are.
They are relatively maintenance free.
Yeah.
I mean, you're cutting them back in March, and that's
it.
about
That's all
it.
you do. Fertilize them.
Right.
That's it.
So super easy to grow, year-round interest in the yard. But even in the wintertime, you
Yeah.
know, unless they get smothered by snow, and they're very wildlife friendly, great
Yeah.
for the birds to hide in, to get food from in the fall and winter. And then also just that movement and texture in the yard. We get so many things that are a round leaf or a pokey
Yeah.
thing or
Yeah.
it's nice to have some different texture out there, to watch it kind of blowing in the fall breezes. It's just so there's a lot of super reasons why you would want to ornament
It's an
grasses.
elevation thing, partly. I think we're high elevation, prairies, valleys. Grasses just naturally grow. We've got so many wild native ones that
Mhm.
grow here. Some miscanthus and bear grass, all these others. So
Right.
they adapt better here than they do other parts of the country, and they don't get that disease, middle die out, all this, some of the issues
Mhm.
that other parts of the country have, and we grow them so easily here.
Right.
Put them on a drip system, like you treat them like a tree or a shrub. Don't treat them fancy. Don't overwater them. Underwater them, and they'll bloom better for you.
And the thing I like about grasses is you can also grow them in containers.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they do quite nicely
Yeah.
in containers, actually. One of the ones that we actually have both of these growing in containers. So this one is the dwarf fountain grass.
Yeah, very nice.
So super cute little grass, nice and green. Its plumes are kind of a off-white, kind of creamy color. Very,
Yeah.
very pretty,
Plump.
plump. We
Yeah.
have this growing in our backyard in a dark blue ceramic container.
Yeah,
And it is
yeah,
gorgeous.
it's stunning.
It is so pretty. In the afternoon, the sun comes around that side of the house and it just like almost glows.
Yeah.
Because of all the little plume heads on it and stuff. So
Little
it's
birds make nests out of them, I noticed.
Mhm.
So they'll pick them and kind of
Yeah.
make little sparrows and stuff around.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah. So, and ours just, we've had it in the container, what, 3 years, 4 years
I
now?
don't. So many years I've forgotten. And it
Yeah.
still grows. I kind of want it to die because I want a different grass in there. Yeah, I get
Right.
bored with it. It's so
Yeah,
pretty.
but it is really pretty this time of year and just so easy to take care of. So we have that grass in a container, but we also have. So this is actually a sedge, but it looks enough like a grass. We'll throw it in with ornamental grasses. So this one is kind of they call it curly fox sedge, and it has kind of a tan to burgundy color to it. I grow this in containers. I especially love it in the fall because it just looks so pretty with their chrysanthemums and pansies and that kind of stuff around it. In the summer, I think right now I have an ivy growing around
Yeah.
it, so I have the brownish red of
Red.
the sedge, but then the ivy has it's a variegated green and white one. It's a really nice contrast.
It's stunning. Yeah,
It's very, very,
very
pretty.
stylish.
So yeah, so you can grow grasses in containers.
These are only knee high. I mean,
Right.
they're short, so they don't overpower
Mhm.
their space or their container or the raised bed, or they don't get in the
Right.
way. And when they do, you just whack them back and go,
That's
that's
true.
enough. You're done.
That's right. So grasses can be grown singly. So some of your big grasses, like your big pampas grass, can be a big showstopper out in the yard, or or you plant in mass. So grasses, I think, look really pretty planted in like 3s and 7s and kind of cluster them together.
Yeah.
Can be really attractive.
I think more people need to collect grasses. Like we have a collection. We got, I don't know, it's 5 or 6 varieties.
Mhm.
Now people collect conifers. They collect
Right.
fruit trees, roses. You could easily collect grasses, different styles, and stage them, and they just grow well together. They're always so striking.
That's true. So one of the new grasses that we have, I would bring it in, but it was too big, but it was pretty. It's called a Black Hawk blue stem grass. It's probably, I'd say, about 4 foot tall. It's going to get about 6 foot in your yard, probably about 2 foot wide. What I loved about it, it has a really dark red, almost burgundy and green stem that grows up. And then it has a plume on it that's almost maroon color.
Yeah, nice.
I think I have not seen that grass before here, but it is beautiful. And I could see it out in the yard where you got a lot of green.
Or you just teasing people?
No, it's here.
Oh,
It's
gotcha.
here.
I thought you're.
I mean, I couldn't bring it into the radio show.
Oh, it's too big to come in the studio.
Yeah.
I got it. I'm tracking.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gorgeous. You got to come down and see it. It'd be really
A black
nice.
grass. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
It'd be really, really
Yeah.
nice contrast.
If it's 6 foot tall, it'll be a good privacy screen
Mhm.
or property line or down a driveway. It's big enough to kind of give it some oomph.
Mhm. Definitely. We also have another taller one that's called heavy metal switchgrass.
That's a pretty one.
That's another one that I like because it's not just green. It actually has color in the stem. It's kind of got a little bit of a red to it.
Blue, red, green. It's got everything.
Switchgrass, yeah.
It's switching all kinds of colors. It's a switchgrass.
It has a very delicate plume to it. So it doesn't have like a pampas grass plume. It's very delicate, very airy, very little wind out there, and just kind of sways.
Yeah.
Really, really pretty. It gets about 4 to 5 foot tall, wide. Another just beautiful one.
If you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at all,
Mhm.
and YouTube, is that right? So one of those. Anyway, I took a video
Ah.
of a beautiful display of switchgrass, and it just aired.
Mhm.
And so it's me just showing
Oh,
what it
okay.
looks like in the landscape of fully mature. It's about just above hip high.
Yeah.
A good video camera. Just such a
Nice.
pretty display. I went, I've got to capture this. Let
Right.
people know.
Yeah, that's perfect. The plume-tastic is a maiden grass.
Fantastic.
I think it's plum-tastic, but I call it plume-tastic.
Plum sounds
Plum.
better.
I think plum because it has like a purpley pink
Oh, yeah.
plume to it when it's blooming, and it one's a little bit shorter. So if you don't need something tall, like a 3 foot,
Lisa, we are out
perfect.
of time. I apologize.
never have enough
Yeah,
time.
the list keeps going on. But Ken and Lisa Lain, the ornamental grasses you can put in your backyard here at Waters Garden Center.
Waters Garden companion plants for September are Russian sage, pampas grass, honeysuckle, and raywood ash.
Raywoods are superior shade trees for wind and drought locations.
Plant as a single specimen or in a grove for more widespread shade on hot south and western exposures.
Dark green foliage forms the perfect round head with leaves that turn a magical wine red through autumn.
We sell only the prettiest shade trees at Waters Garden Center. Shop in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lane, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show with Ken Lane. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now welcome your host, Ken Lane.
So home appeal, home values, how do you keep that curb appeal at its maximum for your neighborhood, for your ranch house, for your whatever that is, so wherever you happen to live? And there are some standards, and they've done some serious studies. This is where realtors really do have some good tools. They can help you maintain or increase the value of your home. And it all starts with number one, trees. Trees are something you plant now and they grow. The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time is today. So getting them in so they have time to grow. And they actually have insurance claims on trees. They'll tell you that if something happens, lightning strikes, it falls down, there's a value to that. And so there's some calculators, the National Tree Benefit Calculator. You can kind of look that up. They measure by your property's value, the CO2 reductions, energy savings. There's several things that go into that. But the typical ash tree, ash is there's a native Arizona ash. If it's got about a 24-inch trunk diameter, so maybe the average kind of smaller, bigger tree, it's kind of mature but not huge, can be up to a couple $100, the value. Catalpas to $300. Maples and sycamores are right up to $300 per tree. And as they get up into that 16-inch level, I mean, that's where you're going, whoa, that's a serious tree. My gosh, 16 inches around, you're up to easily $2,000-$3,000 for the value of a tree. So that's where you set the stage. There's some things where just looking at a tree, sitting underneath one just for 5 minutes de-stresses you. It's just like there's a therapeutic thing that happens to you personally. But just properties that have trees, they can save on average about $200 to $300 in energy savings. That's the U.S. Department of Energy. And when they're planted as windbreaks, they can reduce your winter heating bills by up to 15%. And air conditioning can be reduced by upwards to 75%. If you got a lot of shade, it just really, really cuts back on how much you need to cool down. So trees do a lot. I think they start with that. The other one I kind of researched, native plants. Compared to, let's say, a lawn. So you folks from the Midwest, you all love your lawns. Here in the Southwest, we're less in love. There's some lawns, but they tend to be smaller, kind of less. We don't have the whole property. So you can spend up to $20,000 over 20 years for the traditional lawn. That's a whopping $20,000. That's a lot. And that's probably before it was inflated. Maybe it's 25 now. Over as opposed to native plants or low care shrubs and ground covers. That's on the average per acre of native plants. You're over 20 years, about $3,000 compared to 20. It's huge, the difference. And so we tend to do a lot of micro irrigation or drip irrigation with low water and kind of water efficient plants here in at least the mountain areas of Arizona. That's another way you can quickly add to curb appeal. So, and that's, I'd say, clean up. A lot of folks, I see you bought that pre-owned home, and the gentleman that was taking care of it couldn't over the last 5 to 10 years, and it kind of got overgrown. Cleaning things up make a big difference, including some of those natives. Outdoor lighting has surprising impact on the value of your home, how it looks, how it's perceived. 41% of all home buyers want lighting, or say it's actually essential. 49% desire it. So almost half desire it. 41% say, yeah, I got to have it. And so, and I think there's a difference between solar lights and just actually installed nicely made fixtures. It gives you that resort feel in the backyard. We enjoy our season from spring through fall. So just glorious weather. And so you can be out there and enjoy that lighting more longer periods of time than other parts. So insurance companies will give you about a 5 to 15% discount on your homeowner's insurance if you've got lighting with tasteful plants and you've got not any real claims out there. Just it adds security. There's a lot to it. So it reduces burglaries, that kind of stuff. Fencing. Other than chain link really doesn't add value, but cedar fence, block fences do. They can add up to $2,000 to $5,000 worth of value, perceived value to your home just by having fenced areas. And so retaining walls and terraces, it adds more useful space to your landscape. And so the average 20-foot long by 30-inch high stone wall can increase the value of your home by $2,000-3,000. And then walkways, surprisingly, from just the backyard to the front yard, or down the side property line to the front door, having something nice out there can add up to like $20 a square foot to your, it just adds this welcome to my home. I'm glad you're here. Now, with that being said, looking at appraisers, they go, yep, as long as it meets the neighborhood standards, you're good. If you get crazy wild and it's more artistry than landscaping or fitting in with all your neighbors, if you stand out, it almost brings you down. So people go, oh, I don't want to correct all that. I just wanted beige. Okay, maybe that's extreme. Gray is the new beige. Maybe it's all gray. But having tasteful walkways, not broken glass or some of that kind of stuff. You can get really creative. And I love the artistry. You artists out there, I mean, I love you guys. I'm right there with you. But we're talking about curb appeal, what gets your house remembered and adds to the value of your house. Trees are where it's at. Low care shrubs are right there with it. Outdoor lighting, fencing that kind of either for mainly pets or to keep javelina and deer out. There's reasons, different ways for it. Making the property, especially on inclines with raised beds and terraces, make a big difference. And then walkways. Those are the ways you can really make a kind of a quick impact. Now, I guess not so quick. It takes a while to put a walkway in. But those are ways that really keep it up. And then just, I've got several properties that I've bought over the years that were just overgrown. They just needed some TLC to kind of get them back to where they looked groomed. And so the plants are wild things. And when left to their own, they just go wild. What makes them beautiful is when you take a wildness and then you tame it and groom it, clean it, shape it. And now you get to go out and enjoy this shapely, decorative vista overlooking a mountain view with the sunset. All of a sudden, it totally changes the feeling of that. It becomes your home, or it can be a wild jungle. Wild jungles kind of bring you down. I would say right now, plants are growing wild. They are growing like crazy. Don't be afraid to cut on things right now. I would say too, as you start to trim or clean things up, I'll be preaching this over the next probably 5 to 6 weeks. You need to fertilize. The most important fertilizing of the year is right now. So we're fall this week. So sometime during the fall or autumn season, you really do need to refertilize everything. I was looking at my yard. I'm a good fertilizer. I'm consistent. And even some of my plants this week, I was walking through, cleaning things up, accessorizing with a few flowering kind of things, just decorating, picking pumpkins, accessorizing the front doors. And I went, wow, that plant's been growing so fast. It looks like it's starving a little bit, like it's hungry. The leaves are going a little yellow, yet I know it's not fall color. I know it's it just ran out of food. And so now it looks a little chlorotic, a little yellow, a little off, like it's anemic. It was anemic. And so I need to fertilize those plants. I know. So, and some of your plants are like that. They're like test victims. They whine and complain and show off sooner than the other folks. And so the pine trees, the junipers, the cypress, they're going to be the last ones to tell you they're hungry. The first ones are going to be those quick blooming, lilacs and forsythia, the spring blooming, the summer blooming. The crepe myrtle just stop, and now all of a sudden they're glorious green with some purple hues, and now they're kind of some yellowing. They're not supposed to turn color for another month. That's lack of food. Make sure you fertilize everything in the yard in the next few weeks with 744 all-purpose plant food. Be right back.
Yavapai County is a place of families, healing, and giving back. And that's why service clubs like Rotary does so much good in our community, and you can get involved.
Rotary is partnering with Prescott Schools, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, Bradshaw Mountain Interact Leadership Club, and more. Each helps students up their skills, graduate on time, and become stronger citizens.
That's a lot. Rotary is hosting a Grapes for Good garden party with fine wines, fine food from El Gato Azul, and raising money to scholarship this year's Kids in Need.
Join us. Our sponsors covered all the costs, so your donations go 100% for the good.
The party is in the gardens here at Waters Garden Center. The tickets sold online at PrescottFrontierRotary.com or in person at Waters Garden Center. Join us.
You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
We have some very good, popular garden classes over the next few weeks. We have garden classes every Saturday at 9:30 here at Waters Garden Center, and they're free to the public, to the garden public. If you're into gardening, you just want to get started or have an interesting topic, it's privacy plants for secret gardens, it's stunning container gardens, it's fall list for a healthy yard, best autumn colored trees, succulent gardens. It just goes on and on. You can take a look at all of those at watersgardencenter.com. There's a classes button right on the very front. You cannot miss it. If you're looking, you'll stumble into it. But I've got this week, privacy plants for secret gardens. What are the plants you can use to screen, have kind of estate-like fencing that just blocks things off and makes it feel more secluded? My wife, Lisa, is going to teach the 28th Stunning Container Gardens. And so if you want to learn how to do fall containers, come to that class. Then we get into October, the fall list for healthy. What are things you need to do this autumn to have a really healthy yard that just goes through winter and comes out glorious next spring? And then fall colored trees. We're going into this autumn season. It's kind of exciting. What I'm most excited about is Grapes for Good coming up September 29th. That's the last Sunday in September. Please join us. It will be a hoot. It's like the largest garden party in the county. And we get together. We just have fine wines. Barry over at El Gato and Tormes is catering that. He's the chef. He pairs the foods with the wines. And it's just a big gathering of who's who. And we try to raise money for the schools. And so it's Bradshaw Mountain, Prescott High School, several schools. There's a summer reading clinic. I partner up with a local Rotary Club. I give them the garden center. I give them all the resources to market, PR, kind of get it going, to fill the place up, get them sponsors. And then they basically have a gathering. It's $80 to get in the door. All the money goes right to that cause. Rotary kind of funnels that and makes sure it goes to the right schools for the right causes. And so it just kind of fits. I'm hoping to raise over $100,000. Last year was 102. We'll see if we can break that this year, but it's African safaris and it's golfing to Sedona. I mean, it's all kinds of really great, really good fundraising kind of value stuff. Folks are showing up not just to get a great deal. They're coming in to give back to the community that makes a difference. And so that's September 29th. You can buy tickets online at frontierrotary.com, or just type in grapes for the number 4 good. I showed up, like the first whole page of Google was just showed up. It shows you how to get there, or we actually have physical tickets here at the garden center. Come by. Oh, we'll get you one. So you're writing the checkout to Prescott Frontier Rotary, and then we give all that money to them, and we'll make sure you get inside the door. Bring neighbors, bring friends. It's kind of a fun thing to do in the community. And so it's from 5 to 8 o'clock on the 29th. We close the garden center down. We're starting to clear out the back greenhouse now. It's that very back, huge structure. There'll be live music, it's a fun event. Fun to bring your friends or family, just your neighbors. It's a good event. So Grapes for Good, September 29th from 5 to 8 o'clock. And of course, throughout the week, Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We're here. You're in the planting season. Fall is for planting. You can keep going. You can decorate, accessorize. We're here to help you with that. Lots of new plants came in this week. It's kind of exciting, actually. The fall plants are prettier than others. But throughout the week, we camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We love talking to fans of the show.
Whether you're freshening up an existing landscape or starting with a blank slate, the Waters In-Store Garden Consultation is right for anyone.
If you don't know where to start, Waters Personal Shopper Service allows you to book one-on-one time with an expert without the crowds.
It's easy by phone or through our website. No lines, no waiting.
Purchase a $250 gift card from Waters, and it comes with one-on-one private gardener time.
You're going to love your yard again.
Waters Garden Center in Prescott, or watersgardencenter.com.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.